Sri Radhacharya Stotra Satya Sri Samadhi Divine Grace Shilabhai Charanarvin Bhakti Vedanta Swami Sri Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Kandiviti Founder Sharya Divine Grace Sri Prabhupada Ki Namacharya Sri Laharidas Thakur Ki Prem Sivaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakti Vrinda Ki Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Sri Vrindavan Mathura Dhama Ki Sri Dwarka Dhama Ki Sri Jagannath Puri Dhama Ki Sri Navadip Mayapur Dhama Ki Sri Mayapur Chandradhan Mandir Ki Ganga Mai Tumanmai Ki Sri Bhakti Devi Ki Hare Nama Sankirtan Ki Sarvata Bhakti Vrinda Ki Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai Sri Sri Gauranitai Ki Sri Sri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Devi Ki Jai Sri Krishna Balarama Ki Jai Sri Giri Govardhana Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Madhava Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Pimana all glories to be sung, glories to be sung, glories to be sung, all glories to Sri Guru, Sri Gauranga, all glories to Sri Guru. Om Agyanatimirandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chaturvedam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Vishram Sahitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Namah Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Sri Murti Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Vatsadavarishadharine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Everyone, you kindly repeat after me the following two short mantras and folding our hands. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Om Sarabhyai Namaha.
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 Mukam karoti vataram pagom langayate girim Yatripa Kamaham Bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam Yatripa Kamaham Bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam. Hare Krishna. You have a few books here?
Yes, Lord.
Can you give me speaking about Raghava? Amazing loving beings. So, first of all, we should beg forgiveness and kindly excuse us for being on the late side. I guess I forget exactly where it is. We did get late, but therefore we were discussing a few minutes ago, we will not be able to go to the farm because of our having to go to Lindsay like that. there's a center here in. Is this a center like Birmingham?
Yeah, well, we
In the
have,
making or?
yes, Maharaj. So we have a thriving congregation.
Okay.
We are in the process of looking for a proper building for our temple.
Okay.
But we have a congregation of a good 100, 150 devotees.
Okay.
Full time, but proper congregation devotees. So.
It's, okay, so it's been ongoing for a couple of years or whatever?
No, Maharaj,
Okay.
we've been here for
Since 70s, Maharaj.
yeah,
17 years.
1970s.
1970s. 1970s?
Yes, Maharaj.
Haribo.
Yes. So Shivram Maharaj was very closely associated with Birmingham Yatra for, as was
Govinda Maharaj.
Govinda Maharaj.
Oh,
and
is that?
Tribhuvan.
True.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
We had a temple, Maharaj, but we are in the
sold it.
process of, we've sold it and we're looking
We're
for
planning to buy it.
Okay. I guess I have some catching up to do here. Anyways, congratulations. I mean, going back 1970 is quite historical, and all glories to those who have been practicing and over the years like this. Yeah. Because most of the, well, in my case, I don't come so often to the UK, and mostly it's like the Manor and Soho. Right? The rest is like much less. I did go once to Lindsay, right?
Leicester.
Yeah,
Leicester, Lindsay. Leicester, see? That's how often I come. Leicester. In any event, we're happy to be here. I'm personally on a tour right now, actually, since about 1 month. It's a 3-month tour, specifically promoting a theme that I'd like to kind of talk about this evening and share with all of you. And this theme actually should be close to everyone's heart, because it is close to Srila Prabhupada's heart. And whatever is close to Prabhupada should be close to us as well. And very much in connection with the 50% of Srila Prabhupada's mission that he referred to, which is actually establishing Varnashrama Dharma. Our society, ISKCON society, has, Srila Prabhupada, because of him, been introduced and established in so many countries, and continues actually to attract so many people. There is a particular, I would say, vision that Srila Prabhupada actually gave to us even before leaving India. Prabhupada left India, in 1965. So some 10 years before, actually it was in 1956, a very important essay written by Srila Prabhupada appeared in his Back to Godhead magazine called Gita Nagari. How many of you know about Gita Nagari? A few. Yeah, okay, good. So how many have read Gita Nagari essay? Gita Nagari is an essay. Gita Nagari is also a farm. We have Gita Nagari farm in the US. Prabhupada visited that farm also. And but Gita Nagari as an essay was written in 56, and even before that, in 1949, Srila Prabhupada spoke about what he described as 4 phases, or 4 movements by which the mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would be introduced. And it's in that particular essay. Those who may not have read that essay will not be familiar with these 4 movements specifically, described or coined by Srila Prabhupada as Sankirtan movement, deity worship movement, spiritual initiation movement, and classless society movement. They are progressively involving more individuals and encompassing a larger picture, so to speak. Our movement is primarily, as we know, a preaching movement. We of course begin with our own selves in terms of becoming more more convinced and more involved with the process of Krishna consciousness, and simultaneously, as we know, famous quote often repeated by Srila Prabhupada, especially for those born in the land of Bharatvarsha, Bharat Bhumite Hoila, Manusya Janamazar, Janma Sartak Kori Kora Para Upakar. Para Upakar means greater welfare activities, which is actually spreading Krishna consciousness, which involves actually helping bring about changes in society, basically endeavoring to reintroduce our Vedic culture. Our Vedic culture, we all know, it is described and referred to in so many places in Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Sanatan Dharma, isn't it? Dharma is an eternal process, is an eternal reality, is our eternal identity actually as eternal servants of Krishna. And what is possibly less understood, and that's the area that I would like to speak about briefly this evening. We know about what is spiritual swadharma. Our spiritual swadharma is to engage in devotional activities, is to understand that we are Mamai Vangsho Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana, we are the eternal servants of Krishna, isn't it? That is on the spiritual transcendental platform. That has to do with spiritual swadharma. What we generally are less aware of is that we also have material swadharma. If we read especially many sections of the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, we will come to understand, because the 10th canto describes the activities of Krishna in Vrindavan, the activities of the Brajavasis in Vrindavan, their whole lifestyle. And we can get a clue and an understanding of what is actually simultaneously both spiritual swadharma and material swadharma. Modern day society has, of course, as we all know, deviated from both aspects of dharma. You know, many people, most people, even those who may be practicing some type of spiritual activities, are not aware or not knowing about the science of Bhakti, not knowing about Krishna. And of course, many people are just not practicing spiritual life, as we know. Modern day society is extremely materialistic in orientation, and people in general, you know, over the last century have people in Asian countries and other countries also who were more simple in their living, who were connected with village life, who knew about agriculture, natural agriculture, who had connections with cows because of the ongoing exodus from villages. People have abandoned the tradition. We could say the traditional culture that our Vedic teachings advocate. There's a particular, important for us to understand, there's a particular lifestyle which is prescribed and advocated in the Vedic literature, in the Vedic culture. And that lifestyle has been demonstrated, shown to us directly by Krishna, when Krishna appeared, especially in Vrindavan. So when Prabhupada speaks about these 4 phases, we are generally more accustomed, more familiar with the first 3, which have to do with the chanting of the holy name, distribution of transcendental literature. That's the first phase that Prabhupada speaks of. Sankirtan movement, he calls it. We're also familiar with establishing temples. You're in the process. Well, you had a temple, and you're in the process. You have a congregation. That the second phase is in regards to establish temples. The third phase is in terms of developing a congregation. Prabhupada spoke or referred to that phase as spiritual initiation movement, giving an opportunity for individuals to know more about Krishna consciousness and to give them some training whereby one can become convinced and wants to commit oneself to the process of Krishna consciousness, wants to officially join the family of Krishna consciousness through the process of Diksha or initiation. And the fourth movement, which is less, I would say, known, less understood, and the very term that Prabhupada used initially may seem misleading, because he called it a classless society. So classless generally means no class, but in this context, Srila Prabhupada meant that the natural classes of Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra are there, but all the members are having the same understanding, are all engaged in activities of Bhakti and devotional service. So in that sense, there is no major division. So, Srila Prabhupada spoke about this, I would say, quite extensively. And it's very important for all of us, regardless of where we may be, to understand this dimension, this aspect of Srila Prabhupada's preaching movement, which he referred to as 50% of his unfulfilled mission. There are many nice and important statements given by various acharyas, beginning with Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Srila Prabhupada in particular, whereby they explain how, in order for us to more easily, more quickly progress in our bhakti, in devotional service, as Vaishnavas, to actually become Vaishnavas, this system that Krishna has introduced, which covers all of the different facets of material life, is most important. There is a particular verse, I can just read this very briefly. I was going to read it this morning actually. I still forgot my. It's very interesting how in the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, some of you who have access to your phone, you might want to, it's Canto 10, 11, verse 3-7. You can just quickly read this. Let me see here. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, 11, and 37. I'll just read the text, and the purport is relatively, it's quite short actually, but very significant. Well, I'll read the Sanskrit once at least. Evam yadokasham pritim yatskanto balachestitai kalavatyai sarena vasta kalo mabhuvatu. So just to give a little background, this is in reference to when Nanda Maharaj moved from their earlier residence. They moved to Vrindavan because of too many asuric, too many asuras disturbing, and now they're in Vrindavan, and Krishna and Balaram are growing up. So the translation is as follows: in this way, Krishna and Balaram, acting like small boys and talking in half-broken language, gave transcendental pleasure to all the inhabitants of Braja. In due course of time, they became old enough to take care of the calves. So here's the purport. It's like 10 lines. As soon as Krishna and Balaram were a little grown up, they were meant for taking care of calves. Although born of a very well-to-do family, they still had to take care of the calves. This was the system of education. Those who were not born in Brahmana families were not meant for academic education. The Brahmanas were trained in a literary academic education. The Kshatriyas were trained to take care of the state, and the Vaishyas learned how to cultivate land and take care of the cows and calves. There was no need to waste time going to school to be falsely educated and later increase the numbers of the unemployed. Krishna and Balaram taught us by their personal behavior. Krishna took care of the cows and played his flute, and Balaram took care of agricultural activities with a plow in his hand. Actually, this morning at the Soho the street temple, at the end of the class, one of the devotees just happened to ask, what does Krishna do with his plow? And because I'd read this quite recently, so I just read this line, that Krishna uses his plow for agriculture. You know, what do you use a plow for? For agricultural purposes. I'm reading this verse here because we all know something about the pastimes of Krishna and Balaram in Vrindavan. We all know how the Vrindavan Leela or Braja Leela are the most fascinating, most attractive, most confidential pastimes as well. They're confidential not only in terms of the spiritual dimension that we generally, of course, identify, that we generally can understand, which means, you know, the culmination of Krishna's relationship with his different devotees, the manifestation of all of the different rasas are actually displayed in Vrindavan, especially. That's why the pastimes of Vrindavan are so attractive, so important. But also what is confidential, and we generally kind of miss it, is that Krishna's very daily activities of going out with the calves when Krishna is quite young. After some time, he is promoted to look after the cows, as we know. But when he's very young, as being described here, he looks after the small calves. And Prabhupada makes this very short but very significant statement. This daily going out of Krishna and Balaram, along with their hundreds, if not thousands of cowherd friends, this is the system of education. Most of us, we cannot relate to that. Because we haven't, well, I don't know, maybe somebody has, but most of it in modern day society, we've gone to, you know, we've received what we call a formal education. There's two types of education actually that we can more easily understand. One is formal, one is non-formal. This education being described here is in the category of non-formal education. And what we don't know or don't realize is that Vedic culture, which is an agrarian culture, which is a cow-based culture, is advocating and is based on this type of, we speak about, we hear the phrase simple living and high thinking. This simple living and high thinking is especially manifest, especially meant to be experienced within an agrarian setting. It's not at all easy for modern day people, and I would say even for our modern day devotees, to really catch a hold of what is being conveyed or described here by Srila Prabhupada in this purport. However, it's important for us to at least begin to think about it, because as Srila Prabhupada has so often tried to explain to us, the whole modern setup, whether it's in terms of economy, whether it's in terms of politics, education, various occupations that people have, is not in keeping with the Vedic norm. We're living in a very artificial setup, which is presenting all kinds of very serious problems at a global level, and which is actually hindering, preventing all of us from actually more naturally, more simply, more easily progress in spiritual life. Srila Prabhupada mentioned how this whole modern civilization, which is, every day increasingly more and more urban in nature. It is planned in that way actually by the present leaders of society, that this type of lifestyle, which is drawing every single day hundreds and thousands of people away from this more natural living, which is meant to be in villages, is actually destroying the finer sentiments of human beings. When the finer sentiments of human beings, in terms of just basic interpersonal relationship, is affected, as it is severely affected in modern day society today, to an extent that we cannot imagine. I think we all have some little understanding of the devastating effects on children, especially, that the internet has, that access to cell phone. We see young children. Even the whole educational system is from early stage, getting our children to use the machines and whatnot, and various studies have been made to demonstrate how this is very severely affecting the whole emotional growth, what is meant to be a more natural, just like the body is meant to evolve and grow in a particular way. But when we perform certain activities or maintain a particular lifestyle, it's like young people are engaged in all types of activities which are not healthy for their physical, emotional, social needs, actually. Very important for us to know what is taking place in modern day society in the kind of setup. Prabhupada would make very heavy statements to the effect that modern day society is extremely dangerous. It is physically dangerous, emotionally dangerous, mentally, spiritually. And Srila Prabhupada also mentioned that modern day society is actually an unsustainable. He actually used the word is a doomed society. Doomed. Modern day civilization is a doomed civilization. So when we read the Bhagavatam, especially the 10th canto, where Krishna's activities are described, of course, it's attractive for devotees, but my point, the point I'm trying to make is that not only we should be, of course, attracted to the all of the wonderful descriptions that have to do with Krishna's relationships with his devotees, but we should also try to understand the lifestyle that is there, which Krishna is actually, Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan are a replica of his eternal activities in Goloka, isn't it? When Krishna descends, he, especially in Vrindavan, when he descends in his original transcendental form as Shyamashundar, he displays the activities that are going on actually in the spiritual world. We have there's a few books which I wanted to share with you that speak about this. The first one actually is a compilation of Srila Prabhupada's, various statements and explanations in regards to this more natural lifestyle. And this was put together actually 10 years back. It was on the request of the BBC way back in maybe 1 or 2 years before Srila Prabhupada's centennial. When was Srila Prabhupada's centennial?
1996.
1996, yes. So maybe in 1995 or so, a group of devotees were commissioned by the GBC to look into the whole topic of community development. And they came up with this particular book, which is, actually in the introduction, they explained that when we started our research on the topic, we soon realized that we can't speak about community development unless we speak about varnashram. Because in the Vedic culture, society, and what is commonly known today as sociology, we have what is known as Vedic sociology. Vedic sociology actually is this system created by Krishna called Varna and Ashrama. So they came out with this book called Speaking About Varnashrama. Speaking about Varnashrama is 100% various, again, statements and conversations, purports from different books, especially Srimad Bhagavatam, that cover so many different aspects naturally, whether it's education, economy, politics, etc. It's a very important dimension that all of us, again, regardless of where we may be living or residing, because it's part of what our founder, Acharya Srila Prabhupada, wanted us to do. The basis of our activities, of course, remains the chanting of the holy name. The basis of our activities remains practicing, devotional service. But also the basis of our philosophy has to do with, in a practical way, how we can convey to people in general and to society what type of changes, especially in terms of lifestyle. So this has to do with, for example, very basic things. What kind of food do we eat? Of course, we're all vegetarian as devotees, we know that. But from where our food comes from, most of us who are living in cities, where does our food come from? Do we know? Well, yeah, of course, it comes from the market or whatever. But where does that food come from? Who has grown that food?
Farmers in the countryside.
Yes, but we should know that modern day agriculture is a major deviation from what are we? What are we offering to Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is Pavitram Idam Uttamam, the purest. We are meant to offer what is the purest and the most wholesome of food, which we're not able to do actually in modern day society because we are, as we all know, for the last, since the last century, heavily polluting Mother Earth and using chemical pesticides and chemical fertilizers, and the food that we are consuming is actually not healthy for us. Whereas in the Vedic culture, majority of people were actually growing their own food, keeping cows also. I mean, the same question we can ask, what milk are we offering to the Lord, or what milk are we consuming? Because commercial milk today is not actually milk, it's contaminated milk. You see. And we wonder why it is that so many people have different types of diseases, etc. And what are the occupations of most of our, let's say, most people in society or our devotees as well? It is very far from what is meant to be, what Krishna describes in the Bhagavad Gita as prescribed duties. So there are specific references actually that are important for us to understand some of these basic ideology. Our Krishna consciousness philosophy, we should know, like Vedic knowledge, Vedic philosophy is very, very deep, very profound, very complete. But we also need to know how to apply that philosophy so that we can live in harmony with nature, because one of the important instructions given by Grandfather Bhishmadev is directly in connection with what I'm trying to explain. Grandfather Bhishmadev explains that there are three gifts of nature that Krishna has given to all of us. If we nicely, properly look after these three gifts of nature, all of our necessities in life will be easily met. And if we don't, then the opposite will be there. And what are those three gifts of nature? In modern day society, largely we've become totally disconnected with that. The first gift of nature are cows, the second is land, and the third is the cultivation of knowledge. Of course, you have a farm here, and you have 2 cows, which is very much in line with what Srila Prabhupada requested all of us. Wherever you have a temple, there should be, within a relatively, short distance, a community, a farm community, so that we can offer proper food, wholesome food, and also milk to Krishna. And if sufficient food is grown, then to devotees and to the community as well. Farms are like a stepping stone towards what is meant to be the norm in society. The norm in society, there's a Vedic norm in terms of how we should be living, is village life. Maybe to some it may be difficult to either to understand or to accept, because all of us, most of us, we are living in cities, and we may probably not think about this that much, but it's very important to begin giving this some thought, and also going beyond that to do take up certain activities that can help us reconnect with some of the basic roots that are there in our Vedic culture. So we have a ministry in India since the last, I guess, close to 15 years, since 2009 actually, 14 years, which is called ISKCON Daiva Varnashram Ministry. And its primary purpose is to provide information and actually to reach out in villages. In India, of course, we have so many villages. India is fortunate in that sense. Some other countries are also fortunate in that majority of people still live in villages, such as like Indonesia. America has totally disconnected actually with village life since already many years. And in going around to different countries, presenting seminars on what is called Vedic sociology, Vedic education. This is meant to help us understand this dimension of our mission, of Prabhupada's mission. When Prabhupada was about to leave the planet, he spoke about the need and the importance to establish Varnashrama. He mentioned that this remains 50% of my mission, and my humble request and recommendation is that actually we have a complimentary book, or complimentary copy of this book actually for you. And my request is that devotees, maybe like once a week or something, can begin to hear what our founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada is explaining. As we do normally in our different presentations, it's good if any devotees have some comments or some questions, because it's a very broad topic. It's a very deep subject matter, which I know very well. In one sitting, we cannot exhaust the subject matter, and some of the aspects are just not so obvious to many of us, largely because we often don't discuss so much, or because we've not sufficiently read on the subject matter. Anyone who is connected with Srila Prabhupada's movement, however, has, I would say, moral responsibility. For the sake of what will happen, we, especially those who are parents, who are adults, we have a responsibility to the future generations, isn't it? What kind of education, what type of activity, what opportunities they will have or not have for developing their Krishna consciousness, etc. like that. In addition to this book, there's also, we have other books, but there's one small book we call, with the title, Make Vrindavan Villages. The whole, just like in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, this is also nicely described in the, I think, Madhya Lila, yes. In the Madhya Lila, on the chapter describing more about Bhakti devotional service, 5 main activities, I'm sure many of you are familiar, which more quickly will help us to come to the point or platform of developing our love for Krishna. beginning with Sadhu Sangha, just like whenever devotees come together, we are engaged in Sadhu Sangha. Sadhu Sangha, Nama Kirtan, Bhagavat Sravana, Mathura Vasa, Sri Murtira, Swadhaya Sevana, Sakala Sadhana Sresta, E Pancha Anga, Krishna Prema Janamaya, E Pancha Alpo Sangha. So, beginning with Sadhu Sangha, association of devotees, chanting the holy name, secondly. Third, hearing Bhagavatam. Fourth, we need to understand the different levels of Mathura Vasa. Mathura Vasa, of course, means visiting Mathura Vrindavan in UP, in India. Or most of us actually cannot do that, or if we do, it's only for a short time. Wherever we are, we can create the Mathura Vasa atmosphere. And also, the third meaning of Mathura Vasa is that if we can create also that living condition similar to Vrindavan, community of devotees, connected with caring for cows, connected with Mother Nature, growing our own food, connected with what is meant to be for the majority of householders. This may be surprising or even possibly even shocking. But the majority of householders, their activities are meant to be connected with agriculture. This is the meaning of Mathura Vasa. And of course, Srimurtira, in your home, having deities of the Lord engaging in worship like this. We can take a few minutes for some possible comments or questions from any of you. And especially, I'll just finish on this point here. These pastimes of Krishna I was referring to a few minutes ago. In Vrindavan, the pastimes of going out every day to pasture is giving us a very good clue as to what is meant to be the ideal Vedic economy, and also what is meant to be the ideal Vedic education for the majority of people in society. I'll end here, and we'll be happy to possibly address any thoughts you may have or comments. Yes?
Krishna Maharaj. So I had briefly been looking up some information about your activities with regard to Jayapataka ministries, as well as there was another Surbhi project that you used to
Surbhi
run.
campaign.
Yes, so, and I used to think, maybe God will give me opportunity to ask you to come to my village in North India, in Bihar, and tell us what to do. But maybe if I wanted to do something in my village, so I visit annually, and I was thinking, what do you actually do? Do you talk to villagers and motivate them, or what can I do in my village, either with regard to Surbhi or the Varnashram ministry?
Excellent question. Actually, I did the doctoral research I just completed last year. Part of that was to visit 108 villages. I don't think I visited your village because India has like 7 lakhs villages. So 108 villages is like a drop in the bucket, you know. But I personally visited and interviewed, like over 5,000 people in villages of India. In addition, part of my survey and research was to visit 10 of our devotee communities in 10 different countries, including Canada, US, France, Germany, Hungary, Indonesia, Sweden, like that. And there are very specific things that it just takes one person, namely yourself, one person from a village who has a desire to to actually help introduce Srila Prabhupada's vision, because Prabhupada was very concerned about the state of affairs in the villages of India. He wrote to some of his devotees when he was about one particular time he was coming back to India because he was traveling so much. At different times he would come to India, again would be traveling. So he was telling, this time when I come to India, you please arrange a vehicle and we'll go around the villages. You know, Prabhupada personally wanted to spend time in the villages. He did go to villages also. And because villages is where our culture, where the Vedic culture especially is fully manifest, more fully manifest. Because Vedic culture without cows is incomplete culture. Vedic culture without our interaction with Mother Bhumi. You know. So this ministry that we have, best is to connect. Actually, when are we going to have our pamphlets, Prabhu? Shamananda Prabhu, Pandit, Panditji. When are we going to have our pamphlets?
Sorry, Baba.
Before I leave.
Pamphlets for the nationalist. Actually, they're in the van.
The pamphlets?
Yeah. The one you will say Save Cows, that one you're speaking of, the other small pamphlets. Surabhi campaign.
And also those who are open or receptive, like in our respective villages. And we're establishing a Varnashram college like in Mayapur. We have the ministry also already established since a number of years. We have devotees. As a matter of fact, there's two of our devotees from the ministry are coming to the UK, I think in maybe October. They're trying to come at this time. And they're very knowledgeable about the topic that we are discussing. So I would suggest to open communication. He'll send you the link, the information, and in this way, there's some concrete ways in which, because the mandate of the ministry is actually to reach out in rural areas and help individuals. In the survey, when I was visiting these 108 villages, we had actually two pro formas. One was to help individuals come together on the spiritual level to address what I mentioned a little earlier, spiritual svadharma. That means people taking up the chanting of the holy name and learning to offer their food and so many devotional activities, number one. The second pro forma we had was in terms of Krishi Goraksha Sangha, teaching our villagers the importance of how to care for cows, the importance of growing in a more natural way of food. There's so many aspects actually. So according to your situation, according to those who might be involved and whatnot, our devotees can give some guidelines in that respect. But yes, we've been establishing, for example, Bhaktivedanta library in different villages. In many of the villages that I personally surveyed, we've left some books to establish at the beginning of the library, because, and in some places they come together every week, in some places even every day to do some chanting and to read. So education is, I would say, a key factor. We've been trained and educated in the modern way of living. We need to train and educate ourselves in the Vedic way of living, which is more natural, more simple, more attractive, so many plus aspects are there that ultimately will help to nurture our bhakti, our devotional service, Krishna. So kindly, you can follow up.
Thank you.
Yeah? Yes.
Maharaj, thank you, Maharaj. So many questions, but I won't take a lot of
Yeah.
time. Maharaj, first thing was this urbanization and rural and the exodus of rural.
Yes.
That's one of the concerning things of
Yes.
modern society.
Yes.
I mean, can I be a devil's advocate and say, well, there were always there cities and villages? You know, Hastinapur was a city. There were always cities.
Yes,
So
we're not against Vedic cities, but we should be concerned about modern day cities.
Yes. Okay.
And we should be concerned about the fact that actually in Vedic times, the cities were for administration. The majority of people did not live in cities. You know, they would go to Nanda Maharaj would go to Mathura once a year to pay his taxes. We don't hear of any pastimes of the residents of Vrindavan going to Mathura. They stayed away from Mathura. They had no business to go to Mathura. So majority of people, I mean, if you look at more recently, we don't have to go back 5,000 years. Cambodia, just a few years ago, I mean, I lived there maybe 15 years back. Cambodia, at that time especially, probably largely the same now. Majority of people are still living actually in villages. And of course it's Kali Yuga, and we have a lot of bad leaders. I mean, and therefore very often the basic necessities of people in villages have not been met. There's been, exploitation and whatnot. But we hear, for example, very interesting descriptions of when the British first went to India, of how the villages in India were so peaceful. There was no alcohol. You know, alcohol was introduced by the British. Tea, alcohol, many different bad habits. I say British by the Western way of life, Western ideology, etc., like that. The production of food before the British came, before the days of industrialization. We need to understand that actually these major changes that have been and continue to be so devastating to all of us have a beginning, which especially is connected with the French Revolution in France and the Industrial Revolution in England. And therefore, Prabhupada would often say, India was never meant for industrialization. India's business is different. There's some nice lectures in the Nectar Devotion series. Prabhupada explains this very nicely. Not only India, for that matter. I mean, all of us, we're meant for primarily cultivating our spiritual life, elevating our consciousness. Modern day society, Prabhupada explained, the major defect of modern day society is that people are more and more godless. And therefore, just on the Bhakti platform and after material pursuits and forgetting who they are and what the primary goal of life is, isn't it? And we're all caught up in that as well, because that's the main, driving force of modern day society. But that's killing us. Modern civilization is a killing civilization. We have a book on this, actually, with that title. Modernity is killing civilization. I mean, literally. Prabhupada spoke about modern day education, which is, he referred to as the slaughterhouse of modern day education. We are depriving our children, from young age, from what Vedic culture, when it's properly established, giving opportunities to develop physically and emotionally in such a way that they can begin cultivating Krishna consciousness at an early age. We're preventing children and young people, and therefore we have the kind of very very confused and anxiety-ridden society today, full of I mean, the list of complexities and abuses and whatnot is frightening. Yeah. We should know basically that the whole modern direction of ever increasing industry and material accent is going against the basic principles that are taught in the Vedic culture. And we, all of us, individually and collectively, of course, as a society, we need to understand what are the remedies, to counter that. And it begins with references as given in this particular book. And I recommend also very highly the 5 chapters in the 7th canto. Canto 7, chapter 11 to 15 are the last 5 chapters of that 7th canto, where Narada Muni gives a very elaborate description of Varnashrama Dharma when he speaks to Yudhishthira Maharaj, and especially instructions for householders, grihasthas. Any other quick comment or question? Because we do have